Chapter 13. Escape. The police cars were bumper to bumper at the Junction 6 off-ramp. Officer in charge Gudrun was tense. The flow of traffic was slow but steady behind him. His officers had managed the disruption admirably, coordinating with other precincts to set up diversions all the way back to manage the bottleneck on the Skyway. They'd had nothing from command for a few minutes now, not since the gunfire had stopped, not since they had assured Gudrun, in that frustratingly calm way dispatch always did, that support was on its way, and to liaise with Faber when they decided to show up. They were taking their damn sweet time. He didn't press for details of the gunfight. Protocol was very clear. Dispatch would be swamped with comms burden in such an occurrence, and information would be disseminated as and when required. "Sir, we've got one coming in," one of his uniforms said, a young buck by the name of Reese Webber. Good kid she was, straight down the line. Reminded Gudrun of his dad, in a way. "You know the drill, Webber. Stack her up." Reese Webber stood out in the centre lane of the Skyway, as she'd done a half-dozen times now in the previous short minutes since they'd set up, waving a light baton to direct the civilian cars over to what would normally be an on-ramp on any normal day. They'd made it so the end patrol car could be reversed out the way after a quick inspection to allow the panicky citizens down onto the diversion route, with stinger strips on standby should anybody decide to try and run the roadblock. The officers either side of Gudrun visibly tensed, sighting down issued carbines at the approaching car. "Easy, fellas," he said. "I don't think our unspecified terrorist threat is going to stroll up in a 42 Lark. Do you?" A few nervous chuckles at that, and Gudrun licked his lips before getting on the horn. "Driver of the vehicle, pull into the designated zone for inspection." His voice boomed over the car's loudhailer, and the passenger car visibly slowed as the occupants, no doubt in some state of near panic, tried to make out the scene in front of them. Reese Webber kept waving, and soon the car trundled up to the end vehicle, set back as it was among a couple of its peers, to form an ad hoc inspection bay. The car slowed and stopped, up close to the squad car, and Reese Webber gestured for the driver to roll his window. Gudrun could see from his vantage point as a woman leaned over the driver to talk to his officer, gesticulating with her arms back down the road, talking quick and fast in broken basic, something about shooting and everybody dead. It was not the first civilians that had come through with those wild eyes, telling of the gun battle that had just passed. Reese Webber tried to calm the woman and gave a quick look in the vehicle before waving to the driver of the blocking car to let them through. "Just some scared no brains, sir, trying to get to safety." "Aren't we all?" he replied. It was important to maintain a level of calm amongst his officers. This was quickly turning into a weird night. As the blocking car moved back to allow the hatchback off the Skyway, Gudrun idly wondered how Nobraean refugees had managed to acquire their own car, as he'd only ever seen them use the shuttle bus system before now, before the thought was purged from his mind by the sight of a Faber APC barrelling towards them. "Damn it," he cursed quietly. What on Nosso did these goons want? Surely the combat was the other way, back towards the festival site. The APC was tailed by a news drone in hot pursuit, hovering just above the tank-like wagon, off slightly to the side. It held back and sighted on his blockade as the armoured vehicle came screeching to a halt, tack-rigged soldiers leaping from open assault doors before it had come to a stop. The lead soldier stormed straight for Gudrun, and the officer in charge was about to ask him how he could help when the armoured man boomed, "Get the fuck out of the way!" over his external speaker. Gudrun wasn't quite sure how to respond. "You've just let a terrorist cell through your checkpoint, you incompetent cunt! Now fucking move, before I roll over your fucking roadblock!" They couldn't talk to him like that. He had the authority of the colonial government behind him. It was an outrage. "Fucking now!" the soldier practically screamed, before he and his men mounted back up, APC revving its engine. He felt the blood run from his face. Move the car right now," he said over loudhailer as the APC driver gunned the engine and it lurched forward, barely missing the retreating cop car as it powered down the diversion route into the western residential area. He was having none of this. Goodrun got straight on the radio and reported the conduct of the Faber personnel, terrorist threat or no. Nobody made a mockery of Nospol, especially off-world mercenary scum. The dispatcher at the other end calmly asked him if he was out of his fucking mind, and informed him that 6 squad cars of officers had just been killed by 4 unknown terrorists. Goodrun went very quiet. "You're worryingly good at that," Gus remarked as he sped down the on-ramp, following the diversion signs to quickly rejoin the correct direction of traffic. And traffic it was, slowing to the speed of a particularly full parking lot, as the meagre night traffic of Mar Nosso was funneled straight through one of the poorer residential districts of the large colony. "Acting like I'm panicking because people are trying to kill us. Not exactly a stretch right now," Anna half-joked as they joined the traffic. She stuck her head and upper body out of the window, perching her bum on the windowsill of the car as she looked down the narrow street ahead. Gridlock. "We can't stay here," she said, stating the obvious. Already, the lone patrolman set up on the highway/B road interchange was on the radio. He finished his conversation and looked up and down the road at the traffic in a suspicious fashion, some couple 100 yards behind them. "Okay, D-bus. Keep weapons concealed for as long as possible. We'll take over an apartment in one of those fancy high-rises, hide out until first safe moment, then try and make the RV with our gun guy." Everybody started to move. No need to argue the toss. Anna, Valka and Marco rolled their weapons and rigs up in their jackets and climbed from the vehicle. Gus kept his jacket zipped up, so that on casual inspection he looked like a skinny dude with an uncomfortable food belly. No fuss. Pilgrim exited the vehicle, abandoning the thing in the middle of traffic, much to the irritation of other road users, several of whom honked their horns. The team ran straight west, keeping a solid pace as a heavily armoured vehicle appeared from the highway, turret gunner pointing at the group and relaying via headset to his driver where they had gone. For now, the APC was trapped on the off-ramp, unless it wanted to drop several yards straight down onto ground level, and it revved and honked at civilian cars to get out of the way. "Fuck, they clocked us," Gus said as they disappeared from view. They couldn't see the tack-rigged soldiers deploying from assault doors, stomping down the on-ramp at speed in pursuit, but they could sure as hells hear them. They had crossed into a residential area, buildings more tightly packed than those near the festival area, still clean and well kitted out, but sparse in decoration, belying their utility. "Stand by for contact rear. Martin, protect us." Gus winced as he spoke, pain of his ribs jabbing him with every breath. The team hurried past a multi-story parking lot and a small covered food court, closed at this time of night, or rather morning, up to the first of the high-rise apartment blocks. Gus looked up, attempting to cover the windows by instinct, giving that shit up as soon as he took in the scale of the thing. Taller than any building in Solo Nobre, the block soared high above, and Gus felt a stab of vertigo as Anna rattled the glass-panelled door leading into the lobby area. "Locked," she stated. "Drone!" Valka yelled, opening up on the small A-Grav as it lurked at the corner of the block. It tried to move, but the 8mm rounds punched it out of the sky to drift out of sight, crashing somewhere close by. "Guys, get down!" Gus hissed, tucking himself up to the wall behind a decorative concrete-encased plant, one of 2 that flanked the doorway to the block. A couple 100 yards away, the 4 tack-suited mercs expertly peeled from the corner of the parking lot into the road in a perfect baseline. If they hadn't known where Pilgrim were before, they most certainly had a good idea now. "Same rules apply," Anna said, barely above a whisper. "Get among the civvies. They won't fire at us." Valka nodded and pushed her aside, launching a push kick that smashed the alloy door from its frame in a crash of tortured metal. "Go!" Anna ordered, and the team kept low and filed into the door as the buzzsaw rip of belt-fed machine guns ruined the quiet of the night. Rounds whipped past their heads, destroying foliage of the overgrown plants and taking chunks of concrete from the planted area as the team scrambled into the lobby. "What now?" Vocc asked up front as they sprinted through the apartment block. The lower floor of the high-rise appeared to be a reception area, with seating and elevators to the left, with emergency stairwells to the right, a circular desk, currently manned by a night guard, taking centre stage of the space. The guard immediately took cover upon hearing the gunfire, and the team paid him no heed as Anna barked rapid-fire orders. "Straight through," she said, seeing another set of identical doors on the far side of the block. "If they're all set up like this, we can use the buildings to push as far southwest as we can. Keep as much shit in between us and them as possible. Try to get back outside the wall." "Roger that," Vocc yelled as he increased speed, tucking his head and turning a shoulder as the augmented recce man simply ran straight through the exit door. Glass and alloy exploded onto the street as Vocc slowed, surveying the scene, shaking his head like a dog. "It's working," Gus called from the rear, risking a look rearward as he made sure not to leave Marco behind. The old man was struggling with all the running. His face said it all, despite the lack of complaint, and his leg calipers had picked up a squeak somewhere since the crash. Anyone else, and Gus would have checked if he was okay, but the old operator would have just scowled. "They're not following." The bulky tack suits halted at the far end of the building for a moment, weapons aimed through the lobby. The guard poked his head up and practically fell over himself diving for cover again, but the armoured men did not fire. Instead they carried on past the entrance, out of sight. "They're going to flank us," Gus warned. Anna clapped Vocc on the shoulder and pointed to the adjacent block. "Same detail. Across the street. Go!" Vocc grunted and charged like a taureau, bulldozing into the next building, blood running from a dozen cuts on his shaved scalp. "Beware of supporting call signs," Marco spoke in low tones as they moved, with slightly more caution through the next lobby. This one was smaller and had no guard, with some apartment entrances on the ground floor, interspersed with doors for elevators. "They have the security contract for the whole city," he went on. "There will be hundreds of them on call. We can't get bogged down." The team got their weapons at the ready, being as they were already compromised, and Vocc slowed before the far exit this time, peering through the glass into the well-lit street. Nothing out there yet, bar a couple walking hand in hand, slightly unsteady, probably on their way home from a night out. He tried the door handle, and it clicked quietly. "Thank fuck for that," Vocc muttered, rubbing his head, and edged the door open slowly. When the coast was clear, he gestured for the rest of the team, and they filed out onto the street, following it for a while as it weaved under the skyway, managing to stay clear of any more armoured mercenaries for the time being. Gus wondered where all the tramps were as they passed immense support pillars suspending the concrete monstrosity above their heads. Back home there would be entire communities of homeless in the outer sectors, tent villages, and shanty towns, forming their own little slices of civilization, entirely separate from great leaders' grand plan. Thinking about it, Gus couldn't recall seeing a single vagrant since they'd arrived. It was eerily silent, the blockade evidently still holding, and the team darted from pillar to pillar, dangerously exposed, covering each other in bounding pairs. The other side of the skyway was much the same, high-rise blocks with lots and shops dotted about, though this side was noticeably less well-maintained than those inside the skyway perimeter. Gus even spotted a bit of trash on the street, right before Nospol opened up on them. A rifle round smashed Vocc off his feet, spinning him with a clunk as it hit his shoulder. Marco stopped and turned to the right, firing on automatic, the rest of the team stopping and pivoting to form an instant firing line against the threat, half a beat behind the old man. Vocc scrambled back onto the pavement, then onto one knee, rifle up and scanning for targets. The police, maybe 3 cars worth, had been in their own little roadblock down there in the residential area. Gus could only speculate after why they were concealed down a side street covering the main road, but the general consensus was that they had abandoned their roadblock and set up a snap ambush, hoping to get lucky. And get lucky they did. Showing their lack of experience by engaging the first man in a formation, the police fired rifles and shotgun with reckless abandon from behind dumpsters, and a low wall that looked like it had been dragged there, left over from an earlier operation. They were green and barely trained, but firing across the street, a range of no more than 15 to 20 yards, they didn't need much. The four-man team returned fire, taking what little cover they had in shop doorways, and a hail of rounds blazed back and forth for a wild few seconds, until everybody ran out at once. There was a condor moment. Anna looking around to see if anybody else was hit, bullet holes surrounding their position, brick dust and smoke lingering in the air. Somebody was groaning from over the road. Valka rolled his shoulder to check it still worked, before reaching to his chest rig. Gus heard what sounded like the basic version of "Fuck!" from the other side as he slammed a new mag in place, Marco already firing his stolen rifle, having dropped his SMG on its sling. Instead of reloading, Valka palmed a grenade from his rig and pulled the pin, pitching it with the kind of speed and accuracy afforded by cybernetic enhancements directly into the face of one of their attackers. The individual was poleaxed off his feet, then a cry of alarm from his comrades, and a boom. This ended the ambush in a wave of shrapnel and concussion that buffeted all of Pilgrim. Tears ran down Gus's face from all the smoke and dust in the air, and his ears were ringing painfully. "You could have warned the rest of us, you robot cunt!" he yelled, far too loudly. "No need," Valka replied. "I knew it would land behind that barrier thing." "Shut up!" Anna barked at Gus, then to Valka. "You okay?" He rolled his arm to show her it was not damaged. "Anyone else hurt?" she asked to a chorus of negatives. "Let's keep moving then." She gestured to Valka to lead the way. No sooner had the words left her mouth than a fresh barrage of fire came from behind, and she flinched along with everyone else. Marco turned rearward and started firing calmly, with a simple "move" to signal the retreat, and the team haphazardly laid down bounding cover as they extracted down the street, no time to do anything else. The enemy were on the far side of the skyway, not Faber, thankfully, though Gus couldn't help but think they would have been more restrained in their attack than the Nospol idiots currently chasing them down. Bullets and buckshot filled the air, peppering the street, sides of buildings, blowing out windows as the police gave chase. Gus swore he heard whooping from the police line as the team kept the retreat with as much discipline as they could muster, moving at what felt like a crawl through tightening city streets, surely a sign that they were getting nearer to the outer boundary of Mar Nosso. The team pulled adjacent to another side street, and Anna stole a glance long enough to see the entrance to an apartment block straight through the other side of it. Echoing the recce terminology from earlier, she shouted, "Baseline!" and the team stopped as one and turned, letting rip with whatever they had left into the advancing mass of idiots on scooters, in cars, and on foot. The rate of fire rose in a cacophony of violence, and Anna was showered in brass from Gus's carbine. Such was the spacing of their line, before it slackened off in an instant, the bolt of her empty carbine clacking back on lock, causing her heart to leap in her chest. Gus took a knee and ripped an empty from his carbine, slamming a replacement home, yelling, "Last mag!" as he did so. Marco was in the middle of a reload when a shower of buckshot took his leg out from under him, slamming him face down on the tarmac without ceremony. "Man down!" from Gus, and Valka peeled from his position to the right of Anna, behind the team to the left, and grabbed Marco by the shoulder straps of his rig. "Break right! Break right!" Anna ordered, and Valka moved fast, dragging Marco as though he weighed no more than a full sandbag behind the team into the side street. Gus moved next, then took up a position on the corner of the building to cover Anna with a couple of single shots as she stood up and sprinted, carbine up, clapping him on the shoulder with her free hand to indicate she was clear. The team moved at best speed down the short street, Anna taking the lead with Gus bringing up the rear, so Valka could drag the now cursing Marco in the middle. The team leader slowed as she approached the corner, gesturing for the team to hold, and she stole a quick look left and right, before calling them across the next road into the apartment block.